these developments gave rise to a number of scholars, intellectuals, who developed new theories and rejected secularization. They became anti-secularization theorists. There were even some social scientists, Peter Berger is the best known, who had been a proponent, a well-known proponent of secularization, who said he'd been mistaken. It was obviously a false theory. And there is nothing in modern life that makes things more secular or less religious. Then there's a group associated with a man who I call Rodney Stark. I have to say that in this little island off the coast of Europe where I grew up, people speak a very weird dialect of English. And when I say Stark, I mean Stark. Rodney Stark is an anti-secularization theorist. And he has argued very capably that there is no overall trend of secularization. His theory is that the demand for religion at all times and places is about the same, and that institutional factors have an influence on the supply of religion. And Stark argues that one of the reasons why the United States of America is so religious, it became so religious in the early 19th century and then continued to become more and more religious throughout the 19th century, according to Rodney Stark. The reason for that is simply there was free competition in religion. So the efficiency of the free market took over. Whereas in a society where there is one established church, like all monopolies, it's inefficient. It doesn't provide the value that people are looking for in religion, and so it gets weak and feeble. And also in Stark's analysis is the theory that even in a free competitive market, churches tend to evolve to become more accommodating. And when they do that, they lose their appeal. New churches arise. And what happened in 19th century America was that early in the 19th century, actually at the end of the 18th century, but especially early in the 19th century, Methodism caught hold and spread. Now Methodism, one of the things you have to understand is that what are now the mainline Protestant denominations used to be evangelical. They're the formerly evangelical denominations. Methodism was the original evangelical denomination. Evangelical, for those who want to know, a good rough definition would be fundamentalism plus born-againism, or more politely, conservative Protestantism plus conversionism. And this is something that came into the English-speaking world with John Wesley, who learned it from the German pietists by going to a Moravian meeting. Something new, didn't really exist at the time of the Reformation. It caught on, Methodism caught on in the United States in the early 19th century. Methodism quickly evolved away from its evangelical roots, and baptism came along. Now, Stark's theory for what was happening here is this. Why is it that these churches, this had been said before, but Stark gave it a new framework. Why is it that these churches evolved from being evangelical to being what the evangelicals would call liberal, what we would call mainline Protestant? Why does this happen? And Stark's analysis is fairly straightforward. It's the ministers. Once you get paid ministers, they become like a trade union. They insist on being paid well, and in order to restrict access, they insist on qualifications. So you get theological seminaries. So they say you can't be a minister unless you know Greek and Hebrew, and you've spent, you know, a few years learning theology. And after you've done all this, you deserve to live in a nice big house and have a secure job. So that's how Protestant sects evolve into churches that then start to empty. It's the ministers. And the ministers they see these new enthusiastic people, first the Methodists, then the Baptists, and they see them as troublemakers. They see them as blacklegs. They see them as people who are taking away their livelihood, because they're working cheaper. You see, because they believe in it. It's faith that drives them. They're ordinary working people who believe in it, and so they're taking away the employment from the people who really ought to have it, the cultivated ministers who've been to a theological seminary. And at that theological seminary, they've learned that there are contradictions in the Bible. They've learned that the end of the Gospel of Mark, where there's a resurrection story, wasn't in the earliest versions. They've learned a lot of things like that that are very inconvenient if you're a fundamentalist. And they've also read people like David Friedrich Strauss, higher critics. So they've learned all this cultivated stuff, which all goes to show that it ain't necessarily so. So according to Stark, this is how liberalism or dilution comes into the churches. But also according to Stark, new sects are always coming in to the marketplace. New enthusiastic people who are not susceptible to this kind of secularization are coming in and building themselves up. So you get waves of new evangelizing sects